Could it be? But me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to Louie Tee Live. Divisional breakdowns. We're going to run through every single division in the National Football League over the next couple of weeks. And we're going to do it in the order of the way these teams finished a season ago. Obviously, Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions. We start with the NFC East. Runners up, New England Patriots. The next division up will be the AFC East. So forth and so forth. You get where I'm going with this. So tonight, we're going to start with the NFC East. Talk about this division in 2018. Take a look at what this division did a season ago. Talk about what this division is projected to do this year. We're going to open up the phone lines and have you guys chime in on what you think this division is going to be all about in 2017. Also, or 2018, excuse me. Twitter is going to be open and available. As you can see up above me, make sure that if you're going to hit me up on Twitter @InTheLabRoom, use the hashtag LabRoomFam if you want to have your comment read on the air. Same thing in the comment section. Louie Tee Live is what you will use if you want your comments to be read on the air. So make sure you're using the hashtag Louie Tee Live on YouTube, and make sure you're using the hashtag LabRoomFam on Twitter. The number will be up shortly. I just want to give you my quick thoughts on this division. Obviously, this is near and dear to my heart, and I'd love to tell you that I feel like the NFC East is going to be one of the best divisions in football in 2018, but I don't think that's going to be the case. As a matter of fact, I think the division is going to take a massive step backwards. The Eagles were one of the classes of the NFC last year. I think they still will be one of the better teams in the NFC. I don't think they're going to be the best in the NFC. They've got a number of issues of their own starting out the season with some injuries at some key positions. As they begin to get healthier, and if they can keep the injury total down, we may start to see their depth and their talents shine through, and I think they'll make another run at a Super Bowl. But when you look at this division, the way that it's set up, I don't know if I trust the Cowboys with all the changes. No more Jason Witten. I don't think people understand just how important Jason Witten was. No, he wasn't putting up 1,000-yard seasons anymore, and he wasn't a guy that was going to tear you a new asshole. But on 3rd and 6, he was a reliable target that you knew was going to get open in the red zone. He was a huge part of what the Cowboys did, and he also was a very good blocker in the run game. They're going to miss Jason Witten's presence on the field and off the field. Des Bryant, I know a lot of Cowboys fans think he was washed, and maybe he is. Okay, we'll see. I think, on the contrary, that he is actually a guy with a lot of football left in the tank, and I just thought that they didn't have a quarterback that was equipped with the skill set or the frame of mind to get him the football. You look at Tony Romo and his ability to just throw it up to Dez and give him a chance. Dez was never a great route runner. So miss me with the separation thing. Dez was never separating from guys. All right, Dez was always winning in 50-50 situations with Tony Romo throwing up the football. So I think the Cowboys are going to miss that element of teams having to pay attention to 88. You say what you want about him and him maybe losing a step, and that may be true, and him not being the same dynamic playmaker that he once was. He was still a guy that you had to pay attention to. No one's afraid of Michael Gallup. No one's afraid. I'm a little afraid of Cole Beasley, to be honest with you. But still, no one's devoting double teams to any of these other receivers out there. Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley, all of these guys, even though I think Michael Gallup looks like he's going to be really, really good thus far. Still, I think that's going to hurt this offense in the long run as well. So we'll see what the Cowboys decide to do. Everything changes when Zeke gets back in the lineup, and we haven't seen him all preseason. So that may tell a totally different story when he comes back, starts running the football, and they start going crazy on offense. In any event, the Giants are still a work in progress. Brand new head coach, new direction, new philosophy, new players. It's a lot to juggle to think you're going to just turn around a 3-13 campaign back into a respectable 10-6, 11-5 type of turnaround. It's rare in this league. It can happen. We've seen it happen before, but it's very rare, and I don't think that's what the Giants are going to do in 2018. And then you talk about my Redskins. I'd love to sit here and tell you the Redskins are going 10-6, Redskins are going 11-5, and going to compete to win the NFC East. But that would be a lie because I don't believe that to be the case. I think best case scenario, the Redskins can go 10-6 is I've mentioned before. And if you haven't watched the video over on the Sports Fury, do yourself a favor and check out the video. I did a collab with the Sports Fury, those guys over there, Josh and Sean. They're awesome. And I talked about the Redskins, and we did a season preview and prediction over there on their channel. And so I'm not going to really get into the bits and details of the Redskins schedule game by game like I did over there. If you want to see what I think of each game, then you need to go check out that video on the Sports Fury. But what I will tell you is that the Redskins have a ceiling of 10-6 this season. Looking at this, the schedule is brutal. If you haven't looked at the Redskins schedule, hell, every team in the NFC East has a tough schedule, but I think the Redskins might by far have the worst schedule because of how things played out last year. We all know there's only 2 games different on the schedule for all the teams in the division, but those 2 games happen to be Green Bay, okay, and Arizona. I don't know how good Arizona's going to be, but Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, like, we shouldn't be playing the Green Bay Packers. They're not a third-place team, but because of Aaron Rodgers' injury last year, we're getting the Green Bay Packers. So you look at all the quarterbacks that we have to face. I've already talked about all those things. It's a tough schedule. 10-6 is the best we can do. I think the worst we can do is 7-9. I've got us going 9-7, and so we'll see what the Redskins can do in 2018. So to quickly give you a recap of what I think is going to happen in this division, and if you haven't been paying attention, if you look at the top of the screen, the records that I have projected for each team in this division are at the top of the screen. Also, there are the records from 2017. So I have the Eagles going 11-5 or 12-4. So what that 11-5 dash forward slash 12-4 represents is if Carson Wentz is ready to go in week 1 versus Atlanta, that's a win, okay? If he's not and Nicholas Foles has to take the field, that's a loss. That's the way I look at that. That's the only game that I'm going to put that little caveat in. I don't want you guys doing that either. Don't use that crutch. That's just my philosophy and my thought process with the Eagles to start the season out, is if they have a healthy Carson Wentz, there aren't many teams that lose after winning the Super Bowl that first game of the season. We've only seen it done, I think, once, or maybe twice. But it's rare that a team loses that first game out of the gate after winning the Super Bowl. They get their rings that night, a lot of adrenaline flowing. It's rare that they lose that game, but I'll tell you this much. If Nicholas Foles is the starter, hey, what he did last year was awesome, okay? And he gets kudos from me for what he did. He's not doing that again, okay? So what I look at with this Falcons football team is that they shouldn't have lost to the Eagles the first time. If Keanu O'Neal could catch the goddamn football before halftime, they beat the Eagles last year. That's my thought process. So they're ready to beat the Eagles this year without Carson Wentz. They have Carson Wentz back. I think the Eagles will win that football game. The other 2 games after the game in week 1, they're against Tampa Bay, which they don't need Carson Wentz for that game. And in week 3, they get the Indianapolis Colts. In my mind, looking at the schedule, by the time we get to week 3, Wentz will be back. So he'll miss either 1 or 2 games, and then he'll be back. So my thought process is they need him for week 1. If he's not there for week 1, they should be able to get by in week 2. He'll be back by week 3, and the rest is history. So that's why I have that 11-5 or 12-4 for the Eagles. Either way, it's still good enough to win the division. Meanwhile, I've got the Redskins finishing second in the division at 9-7, really finishing in a tie with the Dallas Cowboys at 9-7. Both teams will finish 9-7. The only reason the Redskins get the nod as the second place team is because they have a better record in the division. I've got the Redskins going 3-3 in the division. I've got the Cowboys going 2-4 in the division. I think the Cowboys are going to be swept by the Eagles and split with the other 2 teams in the division. So that would put them at a record of 9-7 and 2-4 in the division. I could easily see the Cowboys beating the Giants because the Giants don't have anything to play for in week 17. I could see the Cowboys beating them in the Meadowlands in week 17, giving them a 10-6 mark, giving them a 3-3 mark in the division, and giving them a much better shot and making the postseason. That could easily happen. As a matter of fact, I tussled back and forth with that, but we'll see what happens at the end of the season. But for right now, Cowboys are 9-7. I could easily see that being 10-6. And then finally, I've got the Giants pulling up the rear once again at 6-10. New head coach in Pat Shurmur, new offensive scheme, new defensive scheme, new football players on the team. Still think the offensive line is a question mark. I still think that there are a lot of moving parts with this football team, some things to iron out. They're doing a lot of different things on defense. They've got a lot of moving parts. I'm not sure how everything fits together quite yet. I don't think they understand how everything fits together quite yet. So I'm not buying what the Giants are selling to come off the pace with a brand new coach, with a quarterback that's aging, and a dynamic running back, but he needs space to operate. Is he going to get that space with that offensive line that's in front of him? Can't be too sure. They've got to stay healthy, obviously, as every team in the league does. I'm not saying much there, but in any event, I just don't see the Giants putting it all together in Pat Shurmur's first season. They're going to be a dangerous team down the road because I actually like what I saw out of some of their quarterbacks in the preseason. So we'll see what happens. Eli may have a resurgence. You know, if he gets a little bit of a run game and he has some of the pressure taken off of him, a la Drew Brees in New Orleans, where Drew Brees looked like a brand new man last year because he didn't have to do as much. If that is in fact the case for Eli, maybe Eli Manning comes back with a sparkling year this year, and all of a sudden the Giants are one of those really, really crazy teams that turn a 3-13 mark into an 11-5 mark and make a run at it. A la the Los Angeles Rams last year in Jacksonville as well. So we'll see. That's the way I view this division right now. Let's see what you guys think. Twitter is open, and I want to go ahead, open up Twitter right now. We'll get to your comments here in a second. Remember, this is the pecking order of your comments and the things that you have to say. It's really simple. There is calling in. That's number one. That supersedes everything else. All right. There is then Twitter. That jumps the line after calling in. And then obviously your comments on the YouTube chat discussion board will then be read afterwards. So with that being said, let's get to your comments. And let me open up the phone lines. Here's the number. You guys knock yourself out. Let's do it. And remember, if you're going to call in, make sure you got the volume up on your phone. Don't have the phone in your mouth when you're talking. And we need to hear you clearly. So please speak audibly. Please. All right. That being said, let's jump into the comment section. And at Bo Ba Bonnets, my man Bo says, yo, what up, Lou? Boba here. Here are my predictions. Eagles 11-5. So me and him are right there on the same wavelength. He also has the Redskins going 11-5. I don't know about that one, Bo, but okay, I like it. Cowboys 8-8 and Giants 6-10. So we have two of the same records. He says, I think our D will shock a lot of people and make things interesting. All right, so that's my man Bo, thinking the Redskins have a shot at winning the division and really scaring some teams with their revamped defense. Let's get to your comments. Righty, let's see if I can get to the mouse and get to your comments so I can start reading what you guys have to say. So let's get to the proceedings this evening. See what you guys have to say. All right. FBG Tony says, I did my predictions on my blog before guys got hurt, sadly. With that being said, I think our Skins are destined for last. Your thoughts? I don't think the Redskins are going to be in last. But it's a possibility that looms large. I love the addition of Adrian Peterson. I'm excited about what this guy could potentially bring to the table. So I'm hoping that Adrian Peterson is able to change the fortunes of our run game. So we'll see what happens. Interested to see how that goes in any event. I don't think we'll finish in last, but anything's possible, as you can imagine. FBG Tony says, it's a one-team race and one team coming out of the NFC East for the playoffs, and that's Philadelphia, in my opinion. The other teams will struggle to get to 500, he says. That could be the case. I don't doubt that. I really feel like this division isn't going to be as strong as people may project it to be. And so I'm one of those people that think that this could be a rough season for the NFC East. And your prediction of one team making it to the postseason, I think is a legit one, because the NFC is such a tough conference. When you look at the conference top to bottom, if the teams are good that we think are going to be good, i.e. Philadelphia, Minnesota, you look at the Rams, you look at the Green Bay Packers, if these are all good football teams, Saints, Panthers, Falcons, if all of these teams are good, it's going to be hard to sneak in the back door of the NFC playoffs at 9-7. You're probably going to, just like last year, you're probably going to have to win double-digit games if you want to get in. So the way I see it, I think that this is a division that might not get multiple teams in. I'm with you. I think it's going to be one of those divisions that probably only gets about one, maybe two teams at best. I don't see this getting any more than two when it's all said and done. Anwar Muhammad says, am I wrong in thinking the Eagles are the best team in the division, whether Foles or Wentz starts? I believe you're wrong. I don't think Foles is a guy that they can rely on. He caught lightning in a bottle, okay? I don't think Nicholas Foles is the guy you want to stake your claim on if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, Wentz is going to be back. He's going to be healthy. And if he's healthy, they're a different football team. I can't allow myself to think that Nicholas Foles is a different quarterback all of a sudden, and now he's just going to start lighting teams up. Nicholas Foles is still Nicholas Foles in my mind. So, no, I think you're wrong, but you can feel that way if you want. Cloud says, do you think Dez will get a job before the season? Yeah. He'll sign somewhere. You know, there are more injuries to come. We're not done with the injury reaper, and teams haven't seen the worst of what's to come. We got one more week before the end of the preseason, really. So I'm hoping no one goes down. But if no one goes down, then Dez may be without work. It's a possibility. But I think someone's going to go down eventually, and that's going to force someone to have to pick up the phone and call Dez Bryant. Anwar Muhammad says, Giants 6-10. He says, I don't know about that. They have weapons on that offense with the trio of Shepard, Odell, and Ingram. Plus, they added Barkley. Their defense is a little shaky, though. My whole thought process with the Giants is one of, I don't know who you are going to beat if the offensive line isn't much improved. And they made some changes to their offensive line, but I don't know if it's significantly better. And we don't know what we're going to get out of Eli Manning. Obviously, they do have talent with the guys that you mentioned. And then the defense is a huge question mark. So I'm not sold on the Giants right now. They've got to prove to me that they're a much better football team. And I haven't seen anything in the preseason that would suggest otherwise. And I know the preseason isn't a great indication and an indicator of what's to come, but I still would like to see some things. And I really haven't seen anything from the Giants to convince me or sway me any differently. All right. Cloud says, we own the Falcons, man. Stop it. I don't know about that, bruh. Like I said, that could have easily, probably would have been a loss had Keanu Neal caught the ball before halftime. If he catches that pick, you have zero momentum going into halftime. You're going to win that football. And they're going to get more points before halftime. And that was a low-scoring game. You lose that football game. So I don't buy that you own the Eagles, but we will see. In any event, at Matt Lynch 1818 says, I got the Cowboys at 12-4, Eagles at 10-6, Skins at 9-7, Giants at 8-8. So he's got the division being really, really good, actually, with no team finishing below 500. He says, I think the Cowboys have the best linebacking core and an underrated D-line, giving Dak and Zeke more opportunities to recreate 2017. Carson will take a step back along with their O-line. The Cowboys are an intriguing team because if everything falls their way, if they stay healthy, They do have a very intriguing mix of players on that football team. I told you, I think Jaylen Brown looks like he's well on his way back to being the guy that he was at Notre Dame. Sean Lee, when healthy, and we know that's always a big question mark and if with him. When healthy, he's still one of the better linebackers in the league. Leighton Vander Esch is going to add to that group. And so that linebacking core, if healthy, does look like a very formidable group. Obviously, the offense goes as Zeke goes, and if he continues to run the football the way he has in the past, that's going to make the Cowboys a tough team to stop. So I definitely see where you're going, and 12-4 isn't that far-fetched for the Cowboys, because when I did their schedule and I looked at their schedule and I went through the wins and the losses, that was a team that I looked at and I said, man, they could easily win 2 or 3 more games on this schedule that I gave them losses for. So I could easily see the Cowboys going 12-4, 11-5. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And I could see the Eagles taking a step back. It's so much easier. And this is why I feel like the Giants, the Redskins, and to a certain degree, the Cowboys are all dangerous this year, is because, one, we know for a fact in the NFC East, you don't see repeat champions. It just doesn't happen, okay? Haven't had that happen since 2003, 2004. So I don't want to keep beating that horse, but we know that to be a fact. You just don't have repeat division winners in this division. But on top of that, it's so much easier to sneak up on teams when you're the hunter. The Eagles were the hunter. No one thought the Eagles were going to do what they did last season. The Eagles were able to sneak up on teams, and they had a very soft schedule, did the Philadelphia Eagles. The 49ers, the Bears, and the Broncos, everybody in the division played the AFC West, and that division turned out to be a farce. And the good thing for the Eagles was they got a lot of the teams later on in the schedule, like the Broncos when they figured out that they were garbage, the Raiders when they knew they stunk. They got them in the back end of the schedule as opposed to the beginning of the season when those teams still had hope and were playing much better football. So you couple that with the 49ers and the Bears and all those teams that they had on their schedule because they were playing a third place or a last place schedule, and all of a sudden the Eagles had all the pieces lined up to do what they did a season ago. It's not going to be the case this year. You're going to be playing the best of the best, the Rams, the Vikings. The good thing for them is a lot of those games are at home, but still, those are tough football teams, whether you're home or away. They got to play the NFC South division, which we all do. That's a tough division. They're not going to light it up. Like I said, I had an Eagles fan tell me they're going 14-2, and they're sweeping the NFC East. I mean, if that's not delusional, I don't know what is. But again, we will see what happens with the Eagles. I think even taking a step back, they're still going to be the class of this division. Moving right along. Let's see what we got. Here we go. Extreme Archery USA says, we know what will happen. Redskins will win games they shouldn't and lose games they should. Projection, surprise. Redskins beat Jaguars. He says that's the surprise game. Disappointment, we lose to Tampa Bay. 10-6 is his projection. Okay. And he's right about that. The Redskins, like last year, go to Seattle and win an improbable game with a bunch of backups playing. And then the Redskins lose to some teams that you think they should beat. So that's generally what we do. Cloud says, also have a first-year coach. I think they won't do good this year. I guess he's speaking of the Giants. Blackbird Blitz says, NFC East beats up on each other like the NFC South. I don't see the Skins taking that step until next year. We'll see what happens. I'm with you. The NFC East beats up on each other. Last year was an anomaly. Last year you had two teams go 5-1 in the division and the other two teams go 1-5. I don't see that being the case this year. You know, both the Redskins and the Giants were as banged up as you could possibly be. And so both teams suffered in the division. I don't see that being the case this year, and I think both teams will be a lot more competitive Hence, you see the 4-2 for the Eagles in the division, the 3-3 for the Redskins, I think it's the 3-3 for the Giants, and the 2-4 for the Cowboys. Cloud says, I feel you. I think if Nick started for us the whole season last year, we wouldn't have went to the bowl, or at least not have home field advantage. I feel that's the case as well, for sure. Hirsch Patel says, Cowboys' depth is their biggest weakness. It is. And me and my dad had a talk about that this morning, as a matter of fact. He said, man, I pray nothing happens to our offensive line. We do not have great depth on that football team. You look at the receiver position, there's not a lot of things to get excited about if any of their frontline guys go down. Obviously, they've got the receiver from Jacksonville and Allen Hurns. They've got Terrence Williams. They've got the rookie Michael Gallup, and they've got Cole Beasley. After those four receivers, it's slim pickings and Big D. So they've got to stay healthy. The tight end position isn't what we have come accustomed to seeing from Dallas either. A lot of no-name guys. I see some guys with a little bit of talent, though. You know, I want to discount them just because they don't have a name for themselves quite yet. But still, I think depth is definitely an issue for the Cowboys. They can't afford injuries, or else they will. And that's a lot of teams in this league. Let's not single out the Cowboys, but I do think their depth is one that will hurt them if it is tested. Hirsch Patel says, remember when I had the Cowboys at 12-4 and you shut my ass up in 2016? And didn't they go 13-3 in 16? Yeah. That's crazy. You know, I never thought, especially because remember that was on the heels of the Romo injury. There's no way I thought the Cowboys would win. I didn't think they would win. I didn't think they would be over 500. I thought they would be a really bad football team in 2016. Remember that was Dak Prescott's and Ezekiel Elliott's rookie season. So yeah, I knew Zeke was going to make a huge difference. I didn't know he was going to make that much of a difference. Cloud says, last to repeat win the division was the Eagles, though. It was in 2003, back in the McNabb days. We'll see if that is the case again, you know, but again, I'm just going off of the trend, man. It's been almost 2 decades since a team has done that in this division. That's how long it's been. 15 years. So, what up, Ree? He said, who else could it be but your man, Ree? He said, what up, Lou? Always wanted to say that. Oh, man. Cloud says, honestly, we'll win at least 12 games. Laughing my ass off. We'll see about that. Eagles are so confident, as they should be. Eagles fans are so confident, man. Borderline cocky, as they should be. As they should be. Moving right along. Make sure you're using the hashtag LabRoomFam on Twitter, and make sure you're using the hashtag Louie Tee Live on the live feed if you want to chime in. Phone lines are also open if you want to call in. All right. Reese says, we played the whole division this year, Lou, and I think we could go 2-2, 3-1 against the division. I don't see it happening. I don't like your chances against our division, Ree. I think I know I got the Redskins beating you. I got the Giants beating you. I think you get swept by this entire division. You get the Eagles. I think they get a break. I think they actually get you without Jameis. And then I think everyone else plays you with Jameis. But I just don't see you having success against this division. You could easily win 2 out of the 4, though. And you said 2-2. 3-1, I'm not buying 3-1. But 2-2, not out of the realm of possibility. All right. So, Cloud says, "Yep, we won, man. All year of abuse." He said, "All the year of abuse. Now we're gonna let y'all have it until we out for this season." Bree says, "You're gonna disrespect my Bucks again, Lou. I disrespect you guys annually, and generally you guys prove me right. So until you prove me wrong, I'm gonna continue on the trend of disrespect." First of all, I told you before you believed it. Now you believe it, but you don't have a good head coach. You have a very, very bad head coach. A guy that I thought never should have been given a head coaching job to begin with. And so because of that fact, you guys are going to struggle again until he's gone. I think this is going to be his last year in Tampa. But in any event, yes, I'm disrespecting your Buccaneers again. And we can definitely is the call in should be working. We can definitely talk about your Bucks when we get to Tampa Bay, when we get to the NFC South division. So, by all means, be my guest when we do that. But, yep, phone line is open, man. Call it in. And let me make sure I get y'all the right number first. I'll tell y'all, yeah, that's the right number. So, knock yourselves out. Call in, and let's chop it up. So, let's get back on Twitter. See if there's anything. All right, nothing on Twitter. Extreme Archery, the call-in is working. Give it a run. Farah Cody says, "I bet the Eagles don't do good this season. They're so cocky now, it's funny." And when you win a chip, man, you can do that. You get the license to be as cocky as you want to be when you win a chip. Emperor Meat says, "I'm trying to call it up, bro, but it's going to voicemail." All right, so let me see what's good. I'm going to call it myself and see what happens. I was wondering why we weren't getting any calls in. I'm surprised. Oh, yeah, it's not ringing. Okay. Let's see if we can't get that fixed. While we're trying to get that fixed, let's read some more comments and see what you guys have to say while I get that situation squared away. Cruising 26 says, "I still think my Giants was dumb as hell for not drafting a QB instead of a running back." I don't know. I've seen some good things out of the two QBs that you have behind Eli. Davis Webb is the guy that they are very eager to work with, and we'll see if he is a guy that could potentially be the answer after Eli is gone. If he isn't, you may regret not drafting a quarterback. But Dave Gettleman has always been one that has wanted to draft from within. And so he took care of a lot of the issues on the line by addressing it in free agency. And then he saw a guy that was a can't-miss prospect in Saquon Barkley. And you could also regret not taking Bradley Chubb. I mean, there were a number of guys that could have went at number 2 overall. You decided to take the running back, and we'll see what happens with that decision. So, in any event, we'll see if everything works out for you guys. All right, I'm checking to see if the phone is working now. Yeah, it's working now. So you guys can go ahead and chime in now. All right, so we in business now, guys. So go ahead and call in, and make sure your volume is up so we can hear you nice and clear. In any event, Buck Nation says, who's going to defend our offense? The D is a mystery if they can gel together. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the Bucks. Reese says, it seemed like you loved our draft. I did. I think you had a really quality draft. We'll see what happens. Again, FBG Tony says, Eagles fans should be confident, but cocky is ridiculous. They'll definitely be the favorites to win the conference, but it'll be a tough road. Again, when you win the Super Bowl, it's hard to tell somebody that they shouldn't do anything when they win a chip. You know, they earned the right to be cocky. So we'll see what happens. At Greg underscore, at real underscore Greg, Gregory LS says, I think the Redskins D-line can be top 10. And what do you think we should do with Josh Norman? He's getting old. Should we draft Greedy Williams? And will Josh Doxson break out this season? Didn't do much in the preseason. Well, the preseason isn't over. I mean, he's only played in one game. So as far as Josh Norman is concerned, it's hard for me to look forward to the draft. I mean, we just had a draft. We haven't even played the season yet. So to ask me, should we get rid of Josh Norman, I can't tell you about that right now. Josh Norman is, 3 years into a 5-year deal, so I don't see that being the case, but we got a call, so I'll go ahead and take that phone call. You are on live with your man, Louie Tee, live. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, you're speaking with Liam from Compton, California.
What's going on, man?
Man, just chilling, man. Yeah, I was just calling. I'm a big-time Redskins fan. And, yeah, man, you know, I see that you follow me, you know what you're doing out there. Yeah, man, I was just calling, just to talk about the Redskins. Like, basically, like last year was my first time in a long time where I seen the Redskins playing it real, real hard. They actually look a football team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't for the injuries, bro. I mean, they were playing real tough, bro. Like the game against the Raiders, that showed you the potential they got. So to cut it short, yeah, man, I think they could be very, very solid, man. They got that pedigree now, like before when I used to watch them, I'd be like, you know what, man, something's missing. But now they smacking people in the mouth, and it's just a whole different team.
Hey, look. When you look at that game versus the Raiders last year, that was the best of the Redskins. That was the best we had to offer. And if we can get more of those types of performances, obviously it changes the dynamics. I mean, you saw how confident we were as a team, as a fan base after that game. It reminded me so much of after the Green Bay win 2 years ago, where we destroyed the Packers on Sunday Night Football. When you have those kind of dominant performances, and obviously the Raiders game was even more dominant than that Packers game 2 years ago, it gives you a sense of confidence. And that's what the Eagles fans are feeling right now, that sense of confidence that, hey, we can play with anybody, we can beat anybody. And after that Raiders game, we were feeling good about ourselves. We had beat the Rams. We didn't know how good the Rams were at that time, but the Rams turned out to be a really good football team. We had just come off of a road win versus the Rams. And then we did that to the Raiders, and all of a sudden now, big showdown, Monday Night Football versus the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. And we were up early in that ball game, 10-0. And we were playing some lights-out football at that time, and then the injury started to set in. And if we can just stay healthy, you never know what this team can do.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I said, I was actually at that Kansas City game. And, man, I can't believe it. To this day, that Josh Doxson throw, it still haunts me, bro. I can't believe he dropped that. But, that was the season right there. Like, man, if he catches that, they're looking good, and they're going into the bye week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And we got an early bye, man. So That stinks, but you know how it goes, man. We'll see what happens, and I'm really excited. So, what's your prediction for the Redskins and the rest of the division this year in the NFC East?
Okay, well, I'm gonna start out with the Cowboys. I think that because I hate the Cowboys the most. Anyways, with the Cowboys, I think that they're gonna be just just Elliott run the ball. They're gonna struggle. I'm just keeping it real with you. I think they're gonna struggle. I give them about 6 wins. Put me at 5, but I'm gonna give them 6 just because of Elliott.
Okay.
That's them. The Eagles, I think the Eagles fall down back to earth. And I give them 9 to 10 wins. And it depends on the quarterbacks. You know what I mean? If they can both stay healthy. Hey, look, the Eagles surprised everybody last year. We played them twice, and they didn't look like a Super Bowl team to me. They really didn't. But they got there. That's the most important thing.
Right.
And then the Giants, they're going through a transition. I'd give them about 7 wins at the most. Their defense, they paid a lot of money for that defense, and they never showed up. You know what I mean? When you waste $200 million on the defense and they don't play, I guess everybody just went over there to pick up a check. That's what it seemed like.
It was a rough season for them with all the injuries, for sure.
And then I guess the Redskins, they look solid on both. They look solid on both sides of the ball. I got them actually, getting into the playoffs. It's between them and the Eagles. I'm not going to say who wins the division, but I think those 2 teams come out.
Okay. Hey, man, appreciate you calling in, man. Have a good one.
All right, take care, bro. All right, bye.
Likewise. Wow, so he's got the Redskins making the division. Making the playoffs, excuse me. I don't know about that. And I'm a diehard Redskin fan. I'm not really sure that we have what it takes to make it to the postseason this year. But hey, man, I love the confidence. I think the defense is what has a lot of people excited. And so that's right now what Redskins fans are kind of holding on hope to, is that, hey, we can play some defense and give ourselves a chance. All right, got another phone call. Gonna go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man Louie Tee live. Who am I speaking with?
You're speaking with Process Skills, aka your boy Tom. What's going on?
What's going on, Toms? What's good with you?
Ain't nothing, man. Chilling. You know what I mean? Just I saw the live stream. I said, oh, let me get up on here.
All right, man.
NFC East football. You know what time it is.
Yes, sir. Talk to me about the division, man. Give me your predictions for this division.
Okay. Well, first off, we are in the division more than likely. It's not set in stone, of course. We got to play football, but the Eagles will probably win this damn division. They'll probably win it pretty handily. 2 or 3 games. I'll say go 12-4. The 4 games I got them losing against the Vikings. They'll lose to the Falcons in week 1, and I'll be shocked. Like, oh my God, they lost. The Eagles lost to the Falcons. What's going on with the Eagles? Blah 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 blah. All the hoopla, like the Patriots lost to the damn Chiefs last year. Bullshit hoopla. They lose to the Redskins in week 17 due to them not playing starters. So I don't think. a positive note. So I don't trust the Cowboys to go any better than 500. And the Giants are 7-9. Like you said, a whole bunch of new pieces, a whole bunch of moving parts. They had Sterling Shepard and Odell for the first 4 weeks of last season. They started 0-4. That's for a reason. Eli Manning sucks. As long as Eli Manning's their quarterback, they won't get anywhere. So they're going to finish last. Sorry, Giants fans. Last. Bye.
All right. So that's my man, Tones, chiming in with a great breakdown. I hope I got all of it. I think I might have missed some of what you said because I was trying to put the mic on for the different schedules. But in any event, man, I agree with a lot of what you said, bro. I think the Giants are going to be in last place. I think the Redskins are a really solid team, but that injury to Geis does suck. But I like you. I'm interested in Adrian Peterson and what he brings to the table. So we'll see what happens with them. The Cowboys are going to be a tough team to stop on the ground. But, that receiving core doesn't scare anybody.
We're going to play really good 3 quarters every week. They just won't be able to finish games because they don't have enough in the passing. They just don't have enough. I just don't see them having enough. Like, they don't have a legit tight end. Their wide receivers are meh at best, and people are hyping up Michael Gallup and Taylor Austin and Alan Hurns like the best thing since sliced bread. Okay, we'll see. I want to see this.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, bro. Hey, appreciate you calling in, Tones, man. Have a good one, bro.
Nope. You too, man.
Take it easy.
Take it easy. You too, bro.
All right, so that's my man Tones, man, chiming in with his prediction on this division. And I'm really interested to see what happens as we get into the 2018 season. This third preseason week should be really interesting to see what some teams look like and what they do and what some of these players are capable of bringing to the table. We'll really get a feel because a lot of teams have been mixing and matching lineups. Some players have played, some haven't. We're going to start to see a lot of guys play. Even if it's not for an extended period of time, we're going to see just about all the starters on the football field, guys that are healthy enough to go in preseason game number 3. So it'll give us a better indication of what to expect. FBG Tony says, should the Skins have gotten Teddy instead of trading for Alex Smith? I do think Josh Norman needs to take a huge pay cut, though. Hashtag no cap, hashtag HTTR. No, I'm good with Alex Smith. Alex Smith is a proven winner in this league. Teddy Bridgewater is not. Andy's coming off of a major surgery. I'm good. I'll take Alex Smith to give me the best shot to win. Meanwhile, Josh Norman is not taking a pay cut. We'll see what he does this year. I think last year was a down year for everybody. And remember, he was battling injuries. We'll see what he does this year. And this will be a really good indication of where this guy's career is trending. If he has another down year this year and he remains relatively healthy, then he's on the incline. But we know when this guy's healthy, even if he's not picking off passes, he's an impactful player, whether he's forcing fumbles or just being a guy that deters quarterbacks from throwing to his side of the football field. I like what Josh Norman brings to the table, and I want to see what he does this year while he's healthy. What up, Reby? How you doing, girl? J Cam Man says, I see the entire NFC East underperforming this year. Eagles 9-7, Giants 8-8, Cowboys 6-10, Redskins 5-11. Not so much because of the teams themselves, but because of their schedules. It is a tough schedule. I can't see everyone in the division struggling, though. Somebody's going to make it out of this thing with double-digit wins. Well, at least one team. It doesn't have to necessarily be the Eagles either. It could be the Cowboys. It could be the Redskins. I highly doubt that it's the Redskins. It's either the Cowboys or the Eagles in my mind, but most likely the Eagles. But I don't see this division being that bad where no team gets to double-digit wins. I know the schedule is tough, but no way that someone doesn't make it to double digits. And if the Eagles stay relatively healthy, I can't see them missing out on double-digit wins this season. J Cam Man says the AFC and NFC South are full of good teams. He says both have really good teams, and potentially he thinks that those entire divisions will struggle. This division will struggle because both the NFC South and AFC South are on the schedule of the NFC East teams. While that is true, both of those divisions have good football teams. Both of those divisions have beatable football teams. I'm more afraid of the NFC South than I am the AFC South. The AFC South, for as good as that Jaguars defense is, they still have Blake Bortles at quarterback, which gives you a shot. And, you know, I like Blake Bortles a lot, and I want him to succeed, but he's still Blake Bortles. The Titans, you never know what teams is going to show up from week to week. And with the Texans, they're a big enigma. I mean, if they're healthy, they're dangerous. If they got Watt, Merciless, and Clowney all healthy, and I think we've never really seen that combination healthy, look out defensively. And then, of course, the big wild card is Deshaun Watson, and can he stay healthy and what they can do there. But I'm sorry if you guys have been calling in. I haven't even been paying attention to the phone. Anyway, sorry about that. Call in if you like. Reby says, oh, boy, we can call in now? LOL. Oh, shit. Yeah, you can call in. I'd love to hear from you. Let's see. Cloud says, Teddy would have actually been a good option because he's young and still has potential. Yeah, he would have been a lot cheaper as well, but he's not proven. And at this point, if you're Jay Gruden, if you're Bruce Allen, you're not looking for cheap and upside. You're looking for a guy that can win now, because a 6-10 season is enough to get you canned at this point. You know, 9-7, you might be able to survive another year. 8-8, you might be able to survive another year, depending on how it looks and you know, the status of the team. But you go 6-10, you go 5-11, which is very possible with Teddy Bridgewater, because you don't know if he's going to stay healthy. Number one, number two, Teddy's not that good. Teddy's solid. You know, Teddy Bridgewater is a solid quarterback, but he's got a long way to go in his development. That injury really stunted his growth. You go look at his numbers. We've all watched him play. Those numbers are a true reflection of who he's been throughout his career. A game manager, a guy that will win you a game if the defense does enough to win you the game, but won't go out and win you a game by himself. We've seen him have really good performances like he did on the road versus Detroit about 3 years ago, where he was slinging the football, but guys were still making diving grabs and things of that nature in that game. We've seen Teddy be good. We haven't seen Teddy be great for an entire season. That's why I don't think he's a guy that you want to potentially hinge your franchise on at this point. So, let's see. Extreme Archery says, the call-in still won't work for me. It takes me straight to voicemail. I think you might have called in when I already had somebody on. So try it again. So it should work. We've had some calls come in already. So it should work. Okay, it is going straight to voicemail. See if we can clear that up. Oh boy. In any event, Blackbird Blitz says, he said, you said that Teddy Bridgewater is a game manager, just like Alex Smith. Look, man, you say what you want about Alex Smith, okay? Alex Smith had a career year last year, and he threw for over 4,000 yards for the first time in his career. Game managers don't throw for 4,000 yards, all right? He's got a chance to show everyone, and 1 year doesn't make a guy all of a sudden a different quarterback. He's going to have to prove on a consistent basis that this is who he can be. And so we need another one of those 4,000-yard passing seasons where he's got, almost 30 touchdowns and keeps the interceptions down, as we know Alex Smith can. So if he's able to do this again, I'm confident in his ability to be more than a game manager, to shake that label that he's been given as a game manager. So I'm interested to see what happens. But he's much further along in his process than that of Teddy Bridgewater. They're not even equal quarterbacks. Like, I don't even know why we're having this discussion right now. I don't even know why I'm having this discussion right now. They're not the same. So let's see. All right, I'm coming, guys. I'm trying to get this this situation squared away with the phone, man, because it's really starting to get on my nerves now. All right, hold on. All right, still working on that. In any event, let me go to Twitter to make sure we don't have anything there. And Cloud says Sidney Jones will have a Marshawn Lattimore type season this year. I'm looking forward to seeing that young man play. I think he has a chance to really be good, really good. But with these Achilles, I think he had an Achilles, if I'm not mistaken. They usually take 2 years. That first year you come back, you're not the same guy. So I wouldn't expect big things from him necessarily this year. I think next year would be the year where you could start to really look for big things from Sidney Jones. But we'll see. He could surprise a lot of people. FBG Tony says, what's Alex Smith's final stat line at the end of the season, in your opinion? Yeah, that's right about where I see him. He's got 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 INTs. I think the touchdowns may be a little higher, and the interceptions may be a little bit higher as well. More around 8 interceptions and maybe like 24 touchdowns. Either way, it's going to be right around a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, and 3,500 yards is right around where he probably will end up. I'd like him to be more around 4,000, but I think most likely he'll be probably more along the lines of 3,500 yards. I agree. All right, continuing to try to work out this these kinks with the phone. Let's see now. Nah, it's me. I want to know who you think the breakout player for this. I want to know. I want to know who you guys think is going to be the breakout player in this this division, man. Who's the one guy that you think is going to have a breakout season? Could be a rookie, could be an established veteran. Who's the one guy that you think is going to break out in 2018? Let me start seeing those comments come down the pipe. Let's see. FBG Tony says, I think Fab Moreau's going to ball out this year if he gets an opportunity, or nah. Give me a sleeper player on each team this year. I'm asking you guys to give me, I don't want to take any answers from you guys. I've got a couple of sleeper players for each team in my mind, but I want to hear what you guys think. J Cam Man says his is Saquon Barkley. FBG Tony says he's going to give me one for each team, so I'm waiting for that. Emperor Meach says Odell or Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith looks really good, man. That's the guy that right now I'm looking at and I'm saying, boy, he looks like he's starting to get back to where he once was. And that's a scary proposition because as a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, I can tell you that the dude was a baller before the injury, and he looks like he's starting to get back to that point. So he looks damn good. I'm going to just say that. All right. Jonas McConan says, I've got to go with my man Jonathan Allen. He's going to be a beast and possible defensive player of the year candidate. That's saying a lot. In order to be a defensive player of the year candidate, you've got to really, really ball out. From the defensive line positions, especially defensive tackle, so hard to do that. Farrah Cody says, Jonathan Allen, 10 sacks. Okay, so that's 2 John Allens. FBG Tony says, Jalen Smith for the Cowboys, Josh Dotson for the Redskins, Saquon Barkley for the Giants, and Corey Clement for the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, that's different. Corey Clement had a huge Super Bowl. We'll see if he can build on what he did last year. Likely Phenomenon says Saquon offensively and defensively, Daron Payne. JP says, who do you think is going to determine who wins this division? For me, it just really boils down to the Eagles and their health. If the Eagles are healthy, I don't think there's a team in this division that's better than the Philadelphia Eagles. That's just my humble opinion. When you look at the other teams in the division, I cannot get the phone to work, guys. I don't know what's going on with it. I'll have to mess around with it. So just send me your comments. Sorry I didn't get to more phone calls. I'll take the phone call off the table for now. Hopefully by tomorrow when I do the AFC East, we'll have the phone up and running. But you can still hit me on Twitter. You can still hit me in the comment section. So all of those things are still available. Hashtag Lab Room Fam on Twitter. Hashtag Louie Tee Live on YouTube. All right. If the Eagles are healthy, they're going to determine this division. I think the Cowboys and their ability to run the football is going to really determine how well they do this season and if they're able to stay healthy, because as we talked about earlier, their depth is something that could pull them down if it is tested. So health always is a huge issue. I don't really like to bring health up. We assume health when we talk about these teams. I don't need to say assuming health every time. We assume health when we talk about these teams and what they could potentially be. I think if healthy, Eagles are the best team. I think the next team up in the division is the Cowboys, and then the Redskins, and then the Giants. But again, we will see. All right. Technically, Logic says, I think Sterling, Shepard, Peterson, because of Geis, and Jay Ajayi and Hearns are his guys that he thinks are going to be standouts in this division. He gave me one from each team. So Sterling Shepard for the Giants, Adrian Peterson in Washington. Hard to say he's going to be a breakout player, just getting on board, and he hasn't rushed for 1,000 yards in 3 years. But we'll see. I'm not too sure about his ability to just come in. That's why I think a lot of Redskins fans right now are so anxious to see what he brings to the table, because he's so far removed from his dominance. And the Adrian Peterson we've seen the last 2 years looks nothing like the guy that ran for 1,500 yards 3 years ago as a Minnesota Viking. So hard to really imagine him just jumping in. And it's not like we got the greatest offensive line in terms of run blocking with the tight ends and things of that nature as a whole complete group. It's not like we got the greatest group up front to create holes for him in the run game. But again, we will see. FBG Tony says, the reason I gave each of those players are because Corey and Jay will be a two-headed monster. Corey Clement and Jay Ajayi in Philadelphia. He says Josh is going to be a dog. Talking of Josh Doxson. He said Saquon is going to be extraordinary for the Giants, and Jalen Smith is extremely talented. Reby says, she says 12-4, 13-3 for the Eagles, 4-2 in the division, or 5-1. Lost in the division to the Redskins or the Giants. And the Giants, if they go 4-2, if they go 5-1, I'm assuming one of those two teams. She says, I'm looking at Atlanta, but that's at home and a banner drop. We can't lose. I was thinking the same thing, but I said if, and that's why I have you at 11-5, 12-4. If Carson Wentz is healthy, with you guys dropping the banner, getting the rings, and all of that good jazz, it's impossible for you guys to lose if Wentz is healthy. If that's Nicholas Foles, I'm not too sure about that one. Especially with the little injury that he sustained. I know it's not serious, but still, it's enough to make you wonder, Atlanta could come in there and steal it. You know, they got revenge on the brain. They didn't do so well in the revenge game last year versus the Patriots. But nonetheless, I still think that that's a situation where that could be pretty dicey starting out the season. So I personally think that you could be 11-5, 12-4, but we'll see. Emperor Meach says Eagles 10-6, Cowboys 7-9, Giants 7-9, Redskins 6-10. So another person that thinks this division not going to be as strong. I don't think it's going to be a strong division either. But again, one team finishing above 500, highly unlikely. Okay, someone else had a situation where it was 9-7 was the best record, and then everybody else was like 6-10 and 5-11. Again, this division not going to be great, and I know the schedule is tough, but they're not going to be that bad either. I can't see a situation where the division only has one team over 500. Worst case scenario, you're going to get 2 teams over 500. And I think there's a really distinct possibility that you could get 2 double-digit win teams in this division. I honestly think you're only going to get 1 Philadelphia, but if there's another one, I think that team's going to be Dallas, with the Redskins knocking on the door. But see. Daddy Smoke Yam says Redskins defense was top 10 in interception, sacks, tackles last year. If they can get the run defense to the middle of the pack and maintain the secondary, the defense will be top 10 easy. We'll see about that. Extreme Archery says, what if I told you that Daron Payne was the correct pick at 13 and will have the more productive career over Derwin James and Tremaine Edmonds? It wouldn't shock me. And what you have to understand with situations like that one is that it doesn't, you can't really look at guys and what happens with their careers and judge them equally, because they're all going to be in different situations. You know, if Tom Brady doesn't land in New England, is he Tom Brady? If he goes to Cleveland, are we talking about Tom Brady being the GOAT? It's sometimes where you land that determines your fate as a football player. You know, who's your coaches? So hard to really say, but we'll see. You know, all of those guys have a shot at being really good football players, and we'll see if any of these guys are able to take off in their rookie season and where they go from there. The 20th Mike says, who looks better, Louie, the Skins or the Cowboys in terms of players? Depends on what positions you're talking about. If you're talking about as a collective roster, I'd take the Redskins' depth over the Cowboys' depth. But if you're talking about overall talent, I take the Cowboys' overall talent over the Redskins' overall talent. But if you're talking top to bottom 53-man roster, give me the Redskins roster over the Cowboys roster. I think there's more depth throughout 1 to 53. If you're talking talent and having extraordinary football players, then I think the edge goes to the Cowboys. Emperor Meech, I was looking forward to taking some calls tonight, man. Really, really upset that it's not working. And honestly, this is the first time this has ever happened to me with the phone not working. I can't tell you what happened. I honestly don't. We had a really bad storm over here today that may have done something to the phone lines. That's my only guess. It just stopped raining and it was thundering and lightning for the last 3 hours. So I don't know. Maybe, you know, something happened with that. But obviously something just happened because we were able to take a couple of calls earlier in the show. And I don't know what happened after that. Anyway, we got 45 minutes left in this show. KC says, I honestly don't think the Cowboys have a secondary. Byron Jones switched to corner. I saw that. I was watching them in that preseason game versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and I saw Byron Jones switching to corner. Xavier Woods pulled his hamstring, and they don't have any safeties. Again, we'll see what happens with the Cowboys. Byron Jones is a talented football player, corner or safety. We know of this guy's athletic exploits. Hamstrings, you can come back from a hamstring. So we'll see. Like I said, I think the Cowboys have some talent. We'll see what happens. They just got to stay healthy and they got to stay clean off the field. You know, they get Randy Gregory back. You know about DeMarcus Lawrence and what this guy's capable of. And same thing can be said with David Irving. If he can just keep his head on straight, dude is a beast. So they got some stuff. Simplex says, do you think 2 teams will come out of this division or 1? 1 for me right now. That's the Eagles. I feel like the NFC South is a really good division. Don't sleep on the NFC North either, with Aaron Rodgers coming back, the Vikings being who they are, and the Lions are always a team that's hovering around that playoff destination. So I look at that division as well, and I say don't be surprised if the North gets 2. Don't be surprised if the South gets 2, and then you get 1 from the East, 1 from the West. So that's the way I look at the breakdown right now. 2 from each of the South and the North, and then one from, you know, the division winners from both the West and the East. So we'll see. Daddy Smoke Yam says Dunbar will be the breakout player this year. Farrah Cody says, if we get the old AP, what will the Redskins record be? I mean, that does change things dramatically, but it's hard to really say. I mean, again, you're asking me to have this man turn the clock back. And the running back position is one that is so tough to turn the clock back at. You know, it's one thing if you're a quarterback and you get good protection, got guys making plays around you. All of a sudden, you could turn the clock back as a quarterback. You know, running back is so tough because once you hit 30 years old, again, usually the decline is steep for a running back. This guy's 33 years old, so I don't really know, man. That's a tough one. But I think you could add 1 or 2 extra wins to the Redskins record if this guy is just a bona fide stud. If he's AD all day, once again, you could probably add 1 or 2 extra victories to the Redskins total. But again, highly unlikely. Extreme Archery says, I think Washington's, come on, man. Come on, guy. He says, I think Washington's breakout player is Ziggy Hood. They have plenty of depth at defensive tackle and will move. Okay. I'm not. I don't even know why I read that. KT the Southern Gent says, breakout players, Jonathan Allen for the Redskins, Corey Clement for the Eagles, Rico Gathers in Dallas, which is the tight end that they've been working on as a project out of Baylor. I don't see him. I haven't even seen this man getting any reps in the preseason. I don't know if he's injured or what. Haven't even seen this man getting any reps in the preseason. So I can't see Rico Gathers being that guy, but you never know. He is talented, ex-basketball player, and then Evan Ingram in New York, I think is a magnificent selection for the Giants. That dude's got star written all over him. Even with the Giants being a dumpster fire last year, he was the one guy that could change the game for them. And with all the talent coming back and being healthy, that's only going to bode well for him in getting one-on-one matchups and having a lot of space to work with Odell on the outside and now Saquon Barkley being a threat in the backfield. I think this guy's going to have a tremendous season if he's able to stay healthy. At Matt Lynch 1818 says, who do you think has the best secondary in the East? I have the Eagles, he says. I still got to see. That Eagles secondary is a work in progress. A lot of guys coming back. They've got depth at corner, but I don't know how good that depth really is. It hasn't been tested yet. Sidney Jones is coming back. I really like Rasul Douglas. They've got some stuff. You know, obviously Jenkins is the engine that really makes that secondary go. And as he goes, generally they go in that secondary. But we'll see. They've got a lot of stuff, do the Eagles, in that secondary. And they added another secondary member this year in the draft. They could have a really good secondary if everything meshes and gels together. I don't think there's really one strong, dominant alpha secondary in the NFC right now. The Giants used to be that group, but with Janoris Jenkins and the safety out of Alabama, I can't think of his name right now. Those are the linchpins of that secondary. We'll see if they're able to put some other guys, because I'm not a huge fan of the Ohio State corner in New York. So. And the Redskins, to me, don't have that strong of a secondary yet. But much like the Eagles, the potential is there with Monte Nicholson and DJ Swearinger in the back end. And then, of course, Josh Norman and Quentin Dunbar at your 2 outside corners. Nickel is still a big question mark for the Redskins. So we'll see what happens with them there. But I'd have to say, if you put a gun to my head and you made me choose, I'd probably go with the Giants just because of the known commodity of the safety that we've seen play really good, and obviously Janoris Jenkins. might be the best corner in the entire division when he is on. So I'll go with those two right now myself. But nonetheless, we progress. Let's see. KT, the Southern Gent, asked a great question. Is there a surprise playoff team from this division? Yeah, there could be. Could be two. You never know how these things shake out. Obviously, I think if there's a surprise team in the playoffs, it's got to be one of the two back-end teams, Washington or New York, both of which I think are fully capable of making the postseason. The Giants, I keep reminding people, just 2 years ago in 2016, they were an 11-12 win football team. So, obviously, things were different then. And they've got the talent to go right back to double-digit wins. Everything just has to come together for them. But I'm not one to just give a first-year head coach who's trying to figure some things out with basically a brand-new roster. I'm not one to just give these guys double-digit wins. You've got to earn that kind of acclaim. And so I'm not going to just throw that out there. But the Giants, wouldn't shock me if they, at Week 16, were 8-6, with a chance to go 10-6 if they can win their final two games. It wouldn't shock me at all and make the postseason. Same thing could be said for the Redskins. Wouldn't shock me in the least if we get to Week 16, Redskins are 8-6 and they win their final two, they're in and they get to 10-6. But if you told me the Cowboys or the Eagles made the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised by either one of those teams making the playoffs, because I think both of those teams are really good football teams, especially the Eagles. They're, to me, if healthy, they're a lock for the postseason. Whereas with the Cowboys, even if they stay healthy, they're not a guarantee. But with Ezekiel Elliott and that run game, we've seen the dominance that they have when they're running the football and the things that they get off of the run when their run attack is at its best. So for me right now, I'll say that the surprise team would have to be one of the two back-end teams, Giants or Redskins. But nonetheless, Cloud says, do you think some trades will go down before the season starts? Just depends on injuries. You know, injuries dictate what teams do and the level of desperation. And if you have a big injury go down, remember a couple of years ago, Eagles had their quarterback go down, and all of a sudden now, the Vikings had their quarterback go down in Teddy Bridgewater, and that prompted them to trade for Sam Bradford. You know, injuries necessitate desperation, and you might see a team like Carolina or Minnesota with all the injuries along their offensive lines respectively. You may see one of those two teams decide to make a move and trade for someone's offensive lineman. You never know. You know, injuries in this third preseason week, you're hoping stay down, but there will be some injuries that will force teams to make some tough decisions. No one wants to give away draft picks, but you may have to do something if you have a guy go down and you are expecting to have a big season. The 20th Mike says, what can the Skins do to be 16-0? Nothing. They can't. They're not good enough to be 16-0. FBG Tony says, do you think Eli's on his last leg, and what are your QB rankings in the division? I got Wentz, Smith, Prescott, and Manning. Prescott and Smith are very close. I'd agree with that ranking in terms of where I rank these quarterbacks. We are probably disrespecting Eli. We probably are, but what we've seen out of Eli these last couple of years hasn't done him any favors. But we're probably disrespecting Eli. Because Dak wasn't all that great last year either. So I'll even take it a step further and say that it's Eli and Dak tied. I think Alex Smith is way ahead of Dak Prescott in my mind. off of what he's done in this league. Keep in mind, the most winningest quarterbacks since 2012. Tom Brady won, Alex Smith too. And that's not a coincidence. So I take Wentz first. I take Smith second. And then I'll tie Prescott and Manning for third. You got to, Ree. That's what makes this time of the year so great. Everyone thinks they've got a shot because everybody's in first place right now. That optimism will quickly die by week 4. You'll start to see who are the real contenders and who are the pretenders by week 4. We'll start to really be able to weed out the bad teams. Because, look, right now, when you look at all these different channels on YouTube right now, what you'll find is that everybody's 8-8, 9-7, 10-6. Like, everybody in the league can't be 8-8, 9-7. They've got to be some bad teams. A few teams in the league have to be the doormats that everybody steps on to get their dubs. All right, they're going to be 2 or 3, 4-12, 3-13 teams. There's going to be a couple more 5-11, 6-10 squads, and then you're going to have your middle of the pack teams at 9-7 and 7-9. But they're going to be a couple of those outliers, and the Browns aren't one of them this year. So you can't count on the Browns this year, you know. But I think the Buccaneers are going to be one of those teams that stink, that you're going to be able to get some dubs up off of. I look at a team like I had a couple of teams. I think the Raiders are going to be really bad this year. I look at the Raiders, and there's not a lot of hope in my mind for the Raiders. I don't like what John Gruden's doing initially. He may have I think the Seahawks could be a bad team. I think the Cardinals may be in for a rude awakening this year. They may have to go to Rosen sooner rather than later. I actually think that would give them a better shot. But I said all of that to say this. Everybody can't be 8-8, 9-7, 10-6, you know. So I'll be interested to see what happens. Emperor Meat says, I think Evan Ingram will be the Giants' breakout. I take that back. Eagles' breakout, in my opinion, will be Derek Barnett. He silently had a very good rookie year. Derek Barnett on a very talented defensive line. He's going to get a chance to blow up. If he's putting in the work in the offseason to get into better shape, that was always his thing at Tennessee, is he needed to be in better shape to be a little bit more explosive off the edge. If he's in great shape, he's got a chance to do some damage because there's so much talent on that Eagles defensive line. They add Haloti Ngata, they add Michael Bennett, and we already know what Fletcher Cox is in the middle of that line. That's a scary group out there, and if Derek Barnett takes that next step, that makes them even more dangerous up front. FBG Tony says, what's the floor and ceiling for each team in the NFC East? So let's start with the best team in the division. I think the ceiling for the Philadelphia Eagles is 13-3. I think the floor for the Philadelphia Eagles is, and again, all of this is assuming health. We're not even going to bring health into the discussion. I think the floor for them is 10-6. 9-7. 9-7. They could lose some close games, turnover battle, that type of thing, and go 9-7. I don't see them going any worse than 9-7. Dallas Cowboys, ceiling 13-3. You know, they could be that dominant team they were in 2016. Once again, the floor for them is 7-9. You know, they could lose the turnover battle. Some teams could key in on the run game and Zeke and force Dak Prescott to beat them, and he could struggle like he did last year, and the receivers could prove to be a disappointing group, and they could struggle to score points like they did when Zeke was out last year. And we've seen them. Remember what the Denver Broncos did to the Cowboys last year in week 2, where the Broncos pretty much said, you're not running the football, shut Zeke down. I think he had 7 carries for 8 yards or something to that effect. They couldn't run the football, and they forced Dak to beat them, and the Cowboys got their brains bashed in. If that were to occur, they could go 7-9. You look at the Redskins. For me, I still hold steadfast to the ceiling being 10-6. I don't see the Redskins winning more than 10 games with the way that their schedule is configured and the way this team and the roster is filled out. I just don't see the Redskins winning more than 10 games. They could, I mean, I guess conceivably they could get to 11, but everything would have to go their way. The ball would have to bounce their way. They would have to force a ton of turnovers. They'd have to be a top 15 defense, top 10, closer to top 10 than 15. A lot of things would have to go their way for them to maximize their win total. The floor for the Redskins is 6-10. That would be the absolute bottom, dropping out of the season. I don't see that happening, but it could happen. Giants, their floor is 5-11, and their ceiling is 10-6, 11-5. So similar to the Redskins, if shit goes south early, and I want to take a look at these schedules quickly because I can show you my thought process on these schedules. So let's take a look at, let's start with the Eagles schedule. So here's my thought process with the Eagles. All right, going through the schedule. Week 1, I look at their schedule. If they win week 1, I got them winning their first 2, 4, 5 games. They don't lose until week 6 on Thursday night to the Giants on Thursday Night Football. And then they get back on a win streak, and they don't lose again until on the road at New Orleans. So, and then they finish up with a tough stretch at Los Angeles. That's a loss, and at Washington at the end of the season is a loss. So that's essentially where I see the Eagles going 11-5, 12-4. But they've got a chance to start off and really put the fear in God of everyone in the division and everyone in the conference. If they can just win against the Falcons in week 1, they've got a really good shot at beating the Bucs, the Colts, the Titans. They could lose at home to Minnesota, but I think they can do damage against Kirk Cousins. They know Kirk Cousins. They know his strengths, his weaknesses. That's a talented Vikings football team, but I think they feel good about their ability to fluster Kirk Cousins and get him to make some mistakes. That offensive line in Minnesota may be the death of them in 2018. So that's how I view the Eagles' schedule. Then you look at the Cowboys' schedule. So with the Cowboys' schedule, this is how I view it. If they can beat Carolina in week 1, and I got them beating Carolina in week 1, if they can find a way to win that game, they got a chance to go on a little bit of a streak themselves and start the season off 4-0. I got them losing on Sunday Night Football to the Texans on the road. But if they beat Carolina in week 1, they are setting themselves up for quite a run to start the season off, because I think they can go to Seattle. They have never been afraid to go to Seattle, and I don't think Seattle's going to be that good this year. They've never been afraid to go to Seattle and win. But I'll tell you this much. If they lose in week 1 at Carolina, they could easily lose the following week on Sunday Night Football to the Giants. They start 0-2 and then have to go to Seattle. Their season could go south quickly, but I don't see it happening. And then they've got a rare anomaly on their schedule. They got 3 straight home games in weeks 12 through 14. They play the Redskins on Thanksgiving, New Orleans on Thursday Night Football the following week at home, and then at home for Philly in week 14 before finishing up the season with 2 out of 3 on the road. So the Cowboys have a very favorable schedule down the stretch with 3 straight home games. If they can make it there with some wins, they have a shot to really make it to double-digit wins and potentially threaten the Eagles for the divisional crown. As you look at the Redskins, schedule, I've already went through the schedule one by one on the Sports Fury, so I'm not going to do that here. But obviously, this is a schedule that is really tough. I mean, just look at the quarterbacks on this schedule, and it is murderer's row. Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Cam Newton, Dak Prescott. That's all in a row, folks, to start the season off. And then Matt Ryan, Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott again, then Carson Wentz. I mean, that's brutal, guys. It's brutal. That's why I think that 10-6 is as good as it's going to get for the Redskins this season if they can find a way to get that done. Then you go to the Giants. And here's how I look at their schedule. The Giants season can go south and be over before it even gets a chance to start. If they don't win in week 1 versus Jacksonville at home, they could easily lose their first 3 games, because you lose at home to Jacksonville, then you go to Dallas for Sunday Night Football, which easily could be a loss. Then you're 0-2. And then you got to go to Houston at 0-2 and try to get a win against a very dangerous Texans football team. You could drop to 0-3 at that point. Then you come home for New Orleans. And at that point, at 0-3, the desperation. Remember, the Giants started 0-6 last year. So at that point, you start thinking, with the players on the roster that were there last year, here we go again. And shit can go bad quick. So they've got to win week 1 or else. I really think their season really hinges upon week 1. They beat Jacksonville, and this could be a totally different season for the Giants. Because all of a sudden you go to Dallas with confidence and you could steal that game, and all of a sudden you're 2-0 going to Houston with a chance to be 3-0, and all of a sudden now you're a dangerous football team. You drop that game to Jacksonville week 1, you go to Dallas and lose week 2, now all of a sudden you're desperate for a win at Houston in week 3, and I don't see you getting that game. So all of a sudden you're 0-3, and the wheels are starting to fall off the bus in New York already. So I think week 1 versus Jacksonville is huge for the New York Football Giants. That being said, we've got 20 more minutes. So let's get back to the comments. If there are any out there. J. Camman says, it's funny how everyone, including me, is down on the Cowboys. Besides Des Bryant, they are pretty much the same team that was 13-3. I'm not down on the Cowboys. Here's the difference. No Jason Witten, no Des Bryant, and another thing is Dak Prescott scared everybody with the way he played without Ezekiel Elliott. Now, with Ezekiel Elliott, he's a different quarterback, and he's getting Zeke back. So the assumption is, oh, he'll be back to the 2016 rookie Dak that we saw. Or did teams make adjustments last year, and did he struggle against those adjustments? That's the question. That's why a lot of people are hitting the pause button on the Cowboys. But I think if Dak is able to just let the game come to him, and these receivers are better than people are giving them credit for, which I think they have a chance to be, then I think the Cowboys could easily be a team to be reckoned with in the NFC East. Sure. So I'm kind of on the same page as you. I think they're going to miss Des Bryant and Jason Witten a little bit more than most people feel, though. Let's see. Cali says, sadly, I can't see the Skins going 9-7. Their running backs are sketchy. I feel like Cousins is better than Smith, and they haven't upgraded much on defense. 2 out of those 3 statements are legit. I think the defense is slightly better with the addition of Deron Payne up front. I think that makes the defense a lot better, actually. The secondary, you could argue, is better if Monte Nicholson is healthy. Remember, he didn't start the season as the starting safety, and he came on like gangbusters before getting hurt. If he's the guy that we saw in that small sample size last year, then we got a stud, and the defense is exponentially better there. But you're right about the running backs. Even with Adrian Peterson on the roster, running backs are sketchy, and Cousins, I think, is better than Alex Smith as well. John Perez says, do you think our secondary can be the best in the league this year with Swearinger leading the pack? I don't know about the best in the league, but it can be a very good group in Washington. Obviously, the front end and the back end work in unison with one another. If we can get pressure on the quarterback, it will take a lot of pressure off of the secondary to have to cover for as long as they've had to cover for in the past. If we don't get pressure on the quarterback, then it's going to be hard for this secondary to take that next step. Technically, Logic says Eagles 13-3 if Carson Wentz is healthy. Dallas 10-6 if Zeke and Dak have good comeback season. Giants 7-9. I think Eli is just not going to be able to contribute well. Redskins 6-10. Alex will drop off. Let's go back up. Skipped a bunch of comments. There we go. Jonathan Mitchell says, would you have ever imagined us in this position in 2012 when we had rookie RG3 and Alfred Morris? No. Obviously, we thought we had a quarterback for the next decade and a running back for at least the next 5 to 7 years, and that tandem was going to tear the NFC East up. But that's why you can't overreact to 1 year. You know, that's why I'm saying Alex Smith and what he did last year, and he did it with a different team. Can't overreact to that because we don't know what he's going to do in 2018 with a new team and new weapons around him. Same with Dak. You know, Dak lit it up in his rookie season. He wasn't so hot last year. So now we got to see what Dak looks like in year number 3. Let's see. Reby says, I'm excited to see tight end Dallas Goedert and Corey Clement in his second year. A lot of Corey Clements tonight, man. A lot of people really feeling Corey Clement out of the backfield. I like his versatility. I don't know if I necessarily think he's going to be that dynamic as a runner, but his ability to catch it out of the backfield. We saw just how big of a weapon he can be out of the backfield catching it. But they're getting Darren Sproles back this year. Like, how crowded is that Eagles backfield anyway? Like, how many running backs they got back there? You got Corey Clement. You got Jay Ajayi. You got Darren Sproles. I know I'm missing at least one guy. I don't know if Wendell Smallwood is still back there. I might be 1 year too late on him. He might be gone already. But they got a bunch of stuff in Philadelphia. How many touches is Corey Clement going to get anyway? We're going to see. But a lot of people are excited for Corey Clement. Emperor Meach says, Adrian Peterson is no longer AD. He's now just Adrian. I agree. That's why I'm like, everybody, I just want to see what he looks like because he's got something left. He's not AD, but if he can just be AP, I'm good with that, you know. But he's not AD anymore. And yes, Landon Collins is the name of that giant safety that I can never remember his name. Emperor Meach says he might give you a very good game every 4 to 5 games, but he'll be the D Wade of this past season in the NBA. I think that's a great analogy. You know, D Wade had that one game in the playoffs versus the 76ers where he turned the clock back and helped them win on the road. But you're not going to get that out of D Wade every night. And I think that's the same way Adrian Peterson is going to be. We saw that against, I think, the Bucks last year where Adrian Peterson went off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, had a nice run, and I think he went over 100 yards against them. But that might have been his only 100-yard game of the season. I don't know how many of those he has. So, John Perez says, how much do you think Jason Peters has left for Philly? I hear a lot of people talking about Jason Peters as a all-pro left tackle. I'm like, that man ain't been an all-pro in like 3 years. Like, y'all come off of that, man. Even if he's healthy this year, he's not the same guy. I've watched him get beat over the last couple of years when he was healthy. So I don't really get the hype around Jason Peters anymore. You know, I think that his best football, long gone. Long gone. I could be wrong, but I just don't see it. You know, everybody's talking this man up like he's still the Jason Peters of 5 years ago. Like, Jason Peters ain't been an all-pro since like 2013, 2014, man. So he was winning awards off of his name and his clout. I don't think he's that guy anymore. So we'll see. See what he does this year. The 20th Mike says, what do you think of Adrian Peterson to the Skins? Do you think they have a run game now? It remains to be seen. You know, it remains to be seen. We don't have the answers right now. We don't. That's why everybody's so anxious to see. You know, as a Redskins fan, I'm definitely anxious to see. So, Emperor Meat says, don't trust the Giants secondary at all. Apple's still getting burnt, and our free safety position is a battle with Curtis Riley, Michael Thomas, and Darian Thompson. We also are uber thin at corner. I don't like Eli Apple. I never liked Eli Apple, so there's that. You know how I feel about Landon Collins. You know how I feel about Janoris Jenkins. So those two are mainstays. Those are guys you can rely on. I like Darian Thompson. I liked him coming out of Boise at least. We haven't seen much of him at the next level, so we'll see who wins that battle. I don't know what the cornerback position looks like. I mean, the NFC East in the secondary is really weak now that I think about it. And when you're going up against the best division in terms of quarterbacks as a collective group in the NFC South, that doesn't bode well for this division if they don't get pressure. Now, the difference is Dallas can get pressure on the quarterback. Philly can get pressure on the quarterback. I don't know about the Giants getting pressure on the quarterback or not. But I know the other two teams can, and that's why they're not going to struggle in the secondary as much as the Redskins and the Giants potentially will. If the Redskins can get pressure on the quarterback, that changes some of that dynamic. But we'll see. So you might be right. Maybe I shouldn't trust the Giants secondary that much. Appreciate that, LT. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, man. John Perez says, breakout candidates for the NFC East are Barnett for the Eagles, John Allen for the Redskins, Jalen Smith for the Cowboys, and Evan Ingram for the Giants. All really good selections, if you ask me. Nick Riley says, damn, Lou, you just doing my Vikings dirty like that. Going to be a good game. It will be. But your offensive line, like I said, and we'll talk more about the Vikings when we get to the NFC North breakdown. But fact of the matter is, the only team that can stop the Minnesota Vikings is the Minnesota Vikings. And if they implode, it will be from within, and it will be behind their offensive line. So I watched that preseason game versus Jacksonville. They had their way with that Vikings offensive line. Kirk Cousins was uncomfortable the entire game that he was in. I think he might have completed all of 3 passes, none to his weapons of Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. He threw 4 passes to those guys, 0 of 4, when targeting them because of that offensive line. So I feel like if, the Eagles are able to get pressure on the quarterback, they're going to really be able to fluster Kirk Cousins. And as a Redskins fan, I can tell you, Kirk Cousins under duress, not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Nick Riley says, the worst the Eagles can go is 10-6. Can't see them doing anything lower than that. Pretty easy schedule for most part outside of about 5 games. I disagree with that. The NFC East isn't easy. Even when the teams in the division aren't good, you still struggle with them. There's a respect level for family business. Then you play the NFC South and the AFC South. The one thing I will say is that the Eagles get a break with Jameis Winston. They don't play the Buccaneers with Jameis in the lineup. I will say that they get a break with the Saints. They don't play the Saints with a full complement of their running backs, as Ingram will be suspended for the first 4 games, and the Eagles have the Saints within that first 4-game period. I believe they got them in week 3, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to catch some breaks. They play the Vikings at home. They play, I think, the Falcons at home. They play another team. Let's look at the schedule quickly. They play a lot of good teams at home, which bodes well for them. But it's still a tough schedule. They got the Falcons at home. They got the Vikings at home. They got the Panthers at home. And they got the Texans at home. So got a favorable home schedule. Colts at home too. So all the toughies that could give you problems, those are on, for the most part, at the crib. So I like you think that 10-6, 9-7 is probably as low as they can go. My man Boba Sis says, schedules are hard until the games are played. Who's to say that those 2 teams won't be as good as last year? That's why I don't like playing the schedule game. I don't like playing the schedule game. I'm a big fan of just allowing the games to play out. I hate breaking down schedules, but it's a necessary evil. It's what the people want. So I got to give the people what they want. And people love playing the schedule game. I don't. I've said that numerous times on different platforms. You can't, because, again, who's to say that the Titans are any good this year? You think the Titans are good? everybody looked at the schedule last year. Man, that Raiders game is going to be tough. The Raiders stunk last year. Man, the Broncos, dangerous. Broncos were garbage last year. You know, the games you thought were going to be easy were tough. The Rams were tough. You know, you thought the Rams were going to be a pushover. The Saints, Saints are a middle of the pack team. They were damn good. You know, and then the teams you thought were going to be some world beaters, the Broncos, the Raiders, and those types of teams, garbage. So, you know, looking at these schedules, it's an as I always say, it's an exercise in futility. Boba Sis says, I like playing the take it 1 week at a time game. I'm with you, bruh. FBG Tony says, I'm not doubting the Cowboys' talent, but this NFC is so tough that they'll have tough sledding. They'll be one of the first teams out of the playoff race, like 7th or 8th in the conference. We'll see about that. We will see. Boba Sis says, everyone is forgetting that Alex Smith has won 50 games in the last 4 seasons. Sheesh. No love on here. Look, man, people keep forgetting about how good Alex Smith is. We made kid and tease about him being captain check down, and he kind of tried to shed a little bit of that label last year. We'll see if he can build upon that this year. The fact of the matter is, wherever that man goes, he wins. Whether he was in San Francisco, whether he was in Kansas City, he won. All he did was win games. All he did was get double-digit wins, take his team to the postseason, win divisions, and he's got a shot to do that with the Redskins. Highly unlikely, but nonetheless, he's got a shot to do that. My man Nick at Night says, really haven't had much of a chance to look at each team's schedule other than the Eagles, so I will give you the rest later, but I have the Eagles at 11-5. Cool beans. Our FBG Tony says, how many games does Jordan Reed play this year? How many does Jeremy Sprinkle, and how does Jeremy Sprinkle fit into Jay's offense? Jeremy Sprinkle is a solid blocker that can get out and catch the occasional pass, but obviously if Jay Reed doesn't play, Vernon Davis then becomes the next big thing at the tight end position for us. I'm hoping that Jordan Reed can give us 14 this year. That's, for me, every year going into the season, the target number is 14. If I can get 14 out of Jay Reed, it's a hell of a season. 12, and I'm happy. Anything less than 12, I'm slightly disappointed. But that's always my goal going into the season. Can I get 14 out of you? And we'll go from there. So that's where I'm at right now. Reby says, you forgot the J train. I talked about Jay Ajayi. I said Jay Ajayi in that backfield. I said Darren Sproles. I said Corey Clement. And Reby says, you forgot the J train, and I'm also excited to see Sproles back. JP and full season healthy Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks can never stay healthy. He's another guy. He's like the Jordan Reed of the Eagles. When he's good and he's healthy, man, is he a damn good football player. But he's always hurt, just like Jordan Reed. So we'll see what happens. FBG Tony says, AD is ripped, but he can give you 64 yards per game, which gets you to 1,000 yards. How many yards can Samaje, CT 25, and Old Man AD get you combined? I don't know. I mean, that's the question, is if each one of those dudes can get you, and don't forget about Rob Kelly, you know, that he's going to get his touches too. If everybody can contribute a little 500 yards rushing, you know, and not all 4 of them is going to get to 500 yards, but if 3 of those dudes can get you 500 apiece, that's 1,500, man. We'll take that. You know, we'll take that. But, you know, we'll see what happens. We want somebody to step up and say, hey, I'm that guy. Sign me up for 15 to 20 carries. And we'll see if that guy is Adrian Peterson or not. Do you think AP fits the Skins? He's a power runner, and most of the time the Redskins run zone. We talked about that on the Adrian Peterson video, so go ahead and check that out. But to answer your question, no, I don't think he fits. That's why it's imperative that the Redskins fit some runs to what he does well. You know, get a couple of plays he's comfortable with, implement those, and put those into the playbook. Let's see. Matthew Lynch says, how do you see Preston Smith playing this year? We got 5 minutes left. He's in a contract year, man. You know, contract year. You're expecting the best that he has to offer. If he's looking to get paid, he's going to have to give you everything he's got. You know, this is when you get paid. So I'm expecting double-digit sacks from him because he's looking to break the bank. I don't think he's going to be with us next year, though, to be honest with you. I think he's going to end up having to, like Brian Rappaport, he's going to have to end up getting his money elsewhere. That's how I see it happening. But John Perez says, what do you think has been the difference between the 49ers Alex Smith and the Chiefs version of Alex Smith? Experience, a better system, and much better talent around it. Andy Reid, say what you want. Andy Reid is one of the best play callers this league has ever seen. You know, he's very creative. So, ask me that same question, Reed, when we get to the NFC South breakdown, and I give you all the answer you're looking for. Nick Riley says, most definitely don't see the Giants being all that great this season. That defense stinks. Yeah. We'll see. They got a new scheme, new coordinator. We'll see what happens. You know, always a little interesting when you get a team and it's all new. It's all brand new. You really don't know what to expect. And so the Giants are one of those wild card teams in this division. But that being said, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight on this NFC East divisional breakdown. I apologize for the inconvenience of the phone not working. I was really looking forward to taking some calls tonight, hearing from you guys. That unfortunately was not able to happen the way that we wanted to. Hopefully I'll get the phone working again, and maybe I'll do a makeup for this division if I can get the phone working. And I'm hoping it's just some turbulence with the telephone lines out here and the cell phone towers because of the inclement weather we've had. If I can get it up and working, maybe we'll do a makeup after the preseason has hit its mark and we get to the start of the regular season. I might do something right before the season starts to kind of make up for the lack of the phone not working for this NFC East breakdown. But in any event, that's going to do it for the NFC East and the divisional breakdown. The consensus seems to be Eagles going to win this division again. It wouldn't shock me if they didn't. There's a reason no team has repeated in this division for the last 15 years. At some point, though, like the NFC South, they had the same thing going where no one could repeat as division winner. That has to stop at some point. And this, to me, seems like the perfect year for that to end. But Eagles have some injuries. Alshon Jeffrey going to start the season off most likely on the PUP list. You look at Carson Wentz. They're not sure if he's going to be ready for week 1 or not. That could be a loss because of that. They've got some injuries in some situations that they've got to iron out. You never know what could happen. But nonetheless, I think the consensus is Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Redskins, somewhere all in that mix after the Eagles. They're the class of this division. So, I'm your man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me. Remember, we're changing this game we're changing the game one live feed at a time. If you haven't already subbed up the channel, please go ahead and do so. Like this video, share this video, and make sure you're checking out the website, louietee.net, and also make sure you're checking out the podcast, Louie Tee Network, on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Music Play, and, of course, the website, louieteenetwork.net. I'm your man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me. I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Louie Tee.